Hello. Today we're going to paint this scene of Huntington Harbor at sunrise. I'm starting with a wash of mainly cobalt blue and a little bit of cerulean mixed actually in the bottom. What I'm trying to achieve is a gradient between this umber yellow orange color, which I use yellow ochre. I think it was a little bit of burnt sienna and some cadmium orange too. And yeah, so what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get a nice gradient. I am working on a slightly angled board. Hopefully, as you can see, I'm moving it around, just trying to get that color really nice and saturated. I think I go over this a couple of times, actually. I think I go one more time with the orange. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about the off center there. I have to keep moving it up and down so that the and turning it upside down so that the washes flow together. Okay, this is really important. There, I actually gave it a little like a little slam on the table. Sometimes that helps to move the watercolor around. And you know, water follows its own level, so you can move it around. Use gravity in your favor. Yeah, I think I'm letting that dry. Yeah, here we go. Another wash. I'm really trying to get this nice and saturated in here. The reason for this is that, you know, when we look at something, we might think, wow, it looks great. The colors look really nice, but we know that when it dries, it's going to dry a lot lighter, okay? Now that's fine if we want to make a high key painting, but we're trying to make a sunset, so we really want to push up those oranges, especially right now. So now, okay, I'm massing in the tree line just behind all the boats. The boats were just penciled in with a number 2B. Yeah, I think it was a 2B pencil, sharpened. Being careful to work around the shapes. This is where you do have to take some time. You're basically painting in the negative. You have to paint around each form carefully, even over areas that, you know, are going to get darker. Okay, like the masts, for instance. We'll probably go back, and you'll probably see me paint that a little. You know, some areas a little darker if need be. Working around the main sailboat right here. That's pretty much the focal point right there. I based this on the law of thirds. Now you're going to see there's a black and white tonal study. It's going to be a little different. That was actually painted directly as the photograph was, but I felt that there was a little too much foreground in the picture. I didn't think it really needed that much because there was so much vastness up in the sky. So I held back. Now I'm going back and I'm actually getting that side a little darker. You'll see that what's happening is that the sun is picking up on more on the left side. Those trees are kind of facing the sun, where those trees on the right are a little cooler. So I need to get that gradation happening. Sometimes we have to exaggerate to get those gradients and the illusion of coolness in the shadow and the warmness of where the sun is hitting. Okay, here I am adding some basic tone, average tones to the boats. You'll see that I'm going to go over here. I'm using, it's basically burnt umber and ultramarine blue, probably more blue than burnt umber. Um, Trying to get the reflection color here. Okay, this is a little tricky. You have to make sure you put that in so it reflects off the surface. And I realize that I'm going to have to get that a little darker and a little bit more chromatic because that has to hold up to some more washes in that area. Right now it's just really an abstracted shape. I did show a little bit of the side of the boat, which is receiving the sunrise light. Okay, right to the left. Here I'm going back and painting some more. You'll see me go back and refine these shapes quite a few times. Um, it's just the necessary evil. Sometimes you paint something um, and it may not have the impact that you want from the beginning, so you have to constantly adjust. There will be other things that will happen in this painting that you'll see. I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm probably getting some of the color now for the water, the reflection, okay, which is basically picking up the same colors of the trees, which were, it was a little bit of burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of permanent green, just to keep it on the warm side. And I think in some areas too, on the left, I did have to add a little bit more of cadmium orange to keep that warmth going in those reflections. I wanted to remember too that I have this ochre, yellow ochre and cadmium orangey color as the effect light that we see in the gradation in the water. So I want to make sure that my colors pick up on that. Okay, that's really important. I can't start painting too many cool tones in there, or else those colors won't jibe together. Meaning that the colors that the washes that I put on afterwards won't look like they relate to the background. So that gradation is almost like it's a tone, and that tone, which it is, it's a gradient tone, that sets the stage for the preceding washes, meaning have to keep them warm where they need to, cool in the shadows. So most of those boats are actually nestled back. The landmass actually covers the light from some of them in the far distance. We're only really seeing, they're only illuminated like basically a sliver. This is kind of edge lighting, so they don't have a lot of light on them. They don't have a lot of light on the tops. But we'll probably do an exercise with top lighting, and this is a little more fleeting. But we get a nice effect here. It is a process. We have to work around our shapes. We have to constantly refine, just like any other painting. The only thing is, we're just accenting as we go. We're doing some washes. We're adding some accented tones in the distance. At some point, I don't know when, but I will start to darken some of the trees in the back. That's actually the mast cover, okay. Actually, not. I'm sorry. The main sail cover, which was very warm. I think it was probably tan, but that tan was covered with, well, it's just bathed in the morning light. Okay, here I'm starting to introduce some of the waves, the little waves. What I decided to do is maybe change it a little bit, maybe have it, angle it off just a little, just so that everything doesn't look so perfectly, level and parallel. Working on some accents in the boat. You'll see I'll go back and forth on that boat all the way till the end. There's going to be many different things happening on that boat. There's a lot of little detail. I just want to make an impression of the detail. I don't want to sit there and try to make every little brass fitting and railing fittings. Don't want to do that. I want to keep it light and spontaneous. But as you can see, being spontaneous also takes some care. We can't rush into anything. We have to calculate and foresee what we're going to do before we do it in watercolor. You'll actually see my hand in some points going back and forth, just trying to get a motion before I actually put the paint down. Okay, you'll see most good watercolor painters who work in this style, they do the same thing. They want to get that gesture. A lot of times you might have to practice that on the side. Don't think you're going to pick it up right away. Okay, so going back to what I mentioned earlier, I did decide to make those trees a little darker. I think they needed a little punch back there. The boats needed some more contrast. So what I did was I sprayed that area. See, I did it again. Sprayed basically the whole painting. And that spray gives me a soft, diffused effect, and that pigment just kind of dissipates into its own average, or at least the averages of the trees there. So that was just enough to give me a little bit more contrast on the boats in the distance and in the foreground. And yeah, so I feel that's a little bit better. Again, got to constantly readjust. Here I am starting to put in some of that detail with my, I think that was my rigger brush, and now I'm going back to my number 6. I'm adding some shadows into that area, to that mainsail covering, adding some more accents to the bottom, trying to get some solidity happening here. There we go. Going back and getting some more of those ripples in the water. Trying to keep them working. All right, well, here we go. Now some more of the mast reflections happening in here. The big one I did earlier, I just felt that I needed to do it while I was making that reflection on the larger one. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. This video is sped up about 4 times its normal rate, so it's hard to keep track of everything I've done. Okay, yeah, some more. There we go. Trying to get them to jibe. Now, what do I do here? I think I start, yeah, there we go. We had to work on the masts, right? Now, notice I didn't go straight up and down, okay? The reason for this is, these are boats. They're in water. They're not going to be perfect, okay? So they're going to be rocking back and forth, even though there's not a lot of wave action. There's probably just enough where they're moving around. Okay, here I'm adding some. Now that is the rigger brush, and using it for what it's designed to do, is to make the rigging on the sailboats. I make a little mistake on one of these masts, and it gets worse. So, yeah, unfortunately, stuff like that does happen, but I don't know if I think I put a windsock on it at the end, just to kind of save face a little bit. I don't know what I was looking for on the floor. Probably my brush. Okay, that's the pro white. We're coming to the right around the home stretch now. Okay, I'm adding some detail. Let me say that again. I'm adding some highlights to some of these areas, just little dots. They're almost like microscopic in the painting, but they really add so much dimension when we see them. So it's also a good thing to pump up those lights. We got to go for the effect. Okay, we kept everything else rather impressionistic. Why not use some of those highlights in the same way? Knowing how much to put down and how much to hold back. We don't want to make this into a gouache painting, which is an opaque watercolor painting. There's actually a little strip right there that I had to, I wanted to get that lighter. Here I'm trying to resolve that mistake again. I should just give up. Be careful. When stuff like that happens, try to be there right away with your paper towel. Just take care in those areas. Go a little slower, but still the lines should look like they were done quickly. I know it's a complete dichotomy of terms, but with practice you get it. I did really well with the exception of that last one. Okay, I'm gonna get over that. Here I am. Yeah, I think I just added a little windsock there, and probably putting another one another mast right next to it to see if that would help. Probably didn't. And some more, I guess some points of interest. Some of the little lines on the boat. I apologize for my head getting in the way there. Okay. Yeah. Again, some more accents in the background. Yeah. Now drying everything off. Just keeping everything nice and light in the back. Not getting too heavy. There's a lot of detail in the back there. Try to hold yourself back from painting every little boat in the harbor. Okay, keep it simple. I think I just painted out a couple of boats, kept the shapes of the boats very simple. I mean, one boat almost looks just like, I don't know, it looks like it's a rectangle, but it works visually. Now here I'm taking the tape off, but I realized that was one thing I had to do, so I'm spraying that bottom area. Okay, I wanted some more ripples in there, okay, in the foreground. Now I'm holding it upside down like that, or actually sideways, so that those drips would come down. Okay, I wanted them to look like, yeah, that's the desired effect. So there it is. There's the finished painting. Stay well.